Well, welcome to everyone. It's our 10th meeting of the 144th Council of the Corporation of the City of St. Thomas on what's turned into a beautiful day out there, but wasn't pleased to see snow yesterday. First of all, any disclosures of interest from any of the members? Seeing none, then we'll move on to minutes.
Thanks, Your Worship. I have a motion that the minutes of the meeting held on March 4th, 2024 be confirmed. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Herbert.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item this evening is deputations. We have a deputation regarding Southwestern Public Health, the 2024 levy. We have Bernia Martin, Board of Health Chair, Peter Haywood, Program Director, and Monica Newsink, Chief Financial Officer at Southwestern Public Health, will be making a PowerPoint presentation relating to the organization's 2024 levy.
Come on and join us. Peter, good to see you. Bernia? Do you know how everything down there works? And we take sound off mute. Please, go ahead.
Good afternoon or evening. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Bernia Martin. I'm currently acting as the chair of the board for Southwestern Public Health. It's my great pleasure to be here this evening with Peter Haywood and Monica Newsink. And I want to also acknowledge our board representatives, Mayor Joe Preston, who past chair and also sits on the Strengthening Southwestern Public Health Subcommittee, and Councillor Jim Herbert. So great to be here with you today.
Yeah.
In November 22nd of 2023, the Board of Directors was presented with the 2024 budget and it was approved unanimously. As you may know, the province froze funding for public health at 1% for 2024 and also for 2025 and 2026. And with that 1% freeze, we as committed municipalities end up shouldering the remainder of the costs associated with public health. Your public health unit is led by a passionate and committed board of directors who is very strategic and forward-thinking in their decision-making, that is certainly focused on data-driven decisions that not only benefit us in the short term, but also in the long term for our communities. Much of our work is upstream and preventative in nature, and we know that for every dollar that we spend today, we save exponentially in the long term on healthcare. And so an example of that would be immunizations, that every dollar we spend today saves us on outbreaks and expensive healthcare costs if such an outbreak were to occur. Dental care is another one, early intervention for young children, free intervention that saves us on long-term healthcare costs down the road. Today, we look forward to sharing with you the Health Unit's 2024 priorities and the drivers of this year's budget. I want to introduce Peter Haywood. I'll step aside, Program Director for Healthy Communities Division. Both Peter and Monica are here to answer any questions at the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Board Chair Martin, and hello, my name is Peter Haywood. I'm a Program Director at Southwestern Public Health, and it's my honor to share with you the budget update to your worship and the council members and also the city staff and members of the public. So it was actually 4 years ago today where the global pandemic was declared.
Yeah.
And during that time, public health took an opportunity to lead that response in collaboration with the municipalities and community partners across our great community. And as we move into 2024, we also have to think about some of the other emerging issues that are coming forward in our public health world. And that includes public health strengthening. It includes inflationary pressures. And it includes changes to the Ontario Public Health Standards as well as the budget. Is it sharing? Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I wasn't sharing my screen. So with regards to the road ahead, as in previous years, Public Health, Southwestern Public aims to ensure better health outcomes across the community through evidence-informed planning, addressing various public health priorities and opportunities and challenges in the upcoming fiscal year. There are 2 points I really want to highlight throughout this presentation. Like all public sector organizations, wages are our most significant expense. And we also have the good fortune of a Board of Health that just doesn't want to maintain status quo. We want to move the needle. And they want to drive significant change through strategic investment. So for some considerations, opportunities, and pressures, Ministry of Health has introduced the Strengthening Public Health Strategy. It's a 3-pronged strategy that involves voluntary mergers with smaller public health units and the rescoping of the Ontario Public Health Standards, which are really the requirements that drive programs and services for Southwestern Public Health. And we also want to look at the 1% provincial annual funding increase for each of the next 3 years. So what else is on our mind as it relates to public health? Well, it's also about climate change and the challenges with recruiting and retaining qualified human resources, including public health staff. It's about new data in the population health status of our residents and the need to retain a strong public health presence within our community, not just for today, but for the immediate future. So when we look at our 2024 program budgets and supporting costs, we really think about the programs and services prescribed by the Ontario Public Health Standards, the requirements that boards of health must comply to ensure those positive health outcomes in our community. We also need to think about the accountability of the Board of Health. And through that, we offer orientation to Board of Health members around governance, around programs and services, so they have the information necessary to make informed decisions. And we also want to make sure that we're accountable fiscally through the Ministry of Health. And so we offer and provide quarterly financial updates as well as annual updates to the Ministry of Health and Board of Health around our fiscal practices. When we look at some of the population health highlights, in the spring of June of 2023, our team of epidemiologists and public health planners made a presentation to the Board of Health to talk about the health status of our community. It was identified there that the health status of our community in comparison to other communities across the province was not faring as well in some particular areas. For example, the local rate of hospitalizations per 100,000 population due to conditions entirely attributable to alcohol reached an all-time high in 2021 of 305.7 hospitalizations per 100,000. With regards to cannabis in youth, greater proportions of youth reported vaping and cannabis in the past 12 months compared to Ontario vaping. So in Southwestern Public Health region, vaping was at 32%, while the Ontario average was 22.7%. And with regards to cannabis use, it was noted at 25.6% compared to the Ontario average of 22%. So our budget is a commitment to the well-being of the community, to the individuals, the families, and the neighborhoods as well, breaking down those barriers, ensuring that people have access to good programs and services that are going to improve their health and well-being over the long term. It's our commitment to service excellence. It's our commitment to citizen-centered service. And based on those 2 elements, we're really focusing on community health and well-being through the programs and services that we deliver. When we consider the priorities of the Board of Health, those additional priorities that really augments and reinforces the work, the routine work that Southwestern Public Health delivers each and every year, we look at these key priorities of emergency preparedness, harm reduction, substance use prevention in youth, mental health promotion, nurse-family partnership, child immunization, infection prevention and control, climate change, and extreme weather. When we consider about some of the elements of these, as it relates to emergency preparedness, it was in 2022 that the Chief Medical Officer of Health issued a report. And in that report, it talked about increased funding and human resources to respond to emergency management activities. As it relates to harm reduction, we want to ensure that the communities in our area have the resources and the ability to respond to overdoses in the community, which we're seeing across our province. And so we're looking at creating an initial response plan to help support the community and our community partners in responding to those issues. When we look at substance use prevention in youth, we think about vaping, which has become a significant issue within our local schools. And we know that comprehensive health promotion approach, including policy development, school level programming and enforcement, will address some of the vaping issues that we're seeing in our schools. Mental health promotion is really about not individual mental health promotion, but population-based health promotion. And we're looking at building resiliency through skill building workshops, educational campaigns, and further policy development to support the well-being of those in our community. Looking at child immunization, we know that because of the pandemic, we're behind with our child immunization vaccines. Our vaccine preventable disease team is working quite hard to move that forward as quickly as possible. But there's also other challenges that we're facing with regards to the immunization of our children. And that includes fewer physicians available in our community, and also the influx of newcomers to our region as well. And so public health is filling that gap as it relates to child immunization. Infection prevention control has really expanded over the course of the pandemic, but as well after the pandemic, with a focus on congregate settings and outbreaks and infectious disease related issues within those congregate settings. And so it's taking an extensive amount of time for our infection prevention and control team to manage these outbreaks and to ensure there's good infection prevention control practices being applied throughout. When we think about climate change, we think about the vulnerability of our communities and the adaptation that we need to move forward to address climate change. And we know that's an ongoing issue that's only gaining more severity as we move forward. I'll now pass the presentation to Monica, who will talk a little bit about the finances.
Hi, I'm Monica Newsink. I'm the CFO at Southwestern Public Health. So just touching quickly on our cost share overview here. As you can see, the majority of our staffing, our cost is related to staffing, which is required to run our mandated programs and services under the Health Protection and Promotion Act. Our amazing staff work in our local communities to prevent, promote, and protect our communities, ultimately resulting in better health outcomes. As Peter highlighted earlier as well, inflation in 2023 was 3.6%, and many of our vendors increased their costs in excess of the 3.6%. Again, our staffing, our majority have a mandated cost, which we are required to follow. In regards to the levy for 2024, our municipal contribution is based on the 2021 census. So as you can see here, using this information, the City of St. Thomas contributes 19.785% of the municipal contribution. This is not 19.7% of the overall budget, but just the municipal portion. In 2024, the city contributed 7% of the overall budget. The County of Elgin was 9%, and the Oxford County was 21%. This is an increase of 1% from the previous year, which is largely attributable to the first year of our SWPH priorities that Peter just discussed. In 2023, those priorities were prorated as only a quarter of the year was obtained. If there's any questions, we're happy to address them now.
Great. Questions from council? Councillor Kohler first.
Thanks, Your Worship, through you to the guests. Out of all the programs that you currently run, are every one of the programs provincially mandated, or do you have any extra ones that aren't mandated by the province?
Through the worship to the councillor. Yes, all the programs and services that we offer at Southwestern Public Health are mandated by the Ontario Public Health Standards as prescribed by the Ministry of Health.
Just a supplementary, I guess. I want to thank you for coming in and clarifying that, because I know that some of the things, and from what we've seen, or at least what I seen when this came through in the province, maintaining only a 1% increase, many of the other boards really looked at their budget and seen what they could do with it. And in my appearance, it didn't look like that happened here. So I certainly appreciate you coming and explaining that. I know our members did a pretty good job of that too, but it just kind of looked like, here's the increase, pay it, and that's it. And from what I seen on other boards, it looked like they actually did a deep dive, and some of them actually put some provisions in to reduce that impact. But certainly understand that. And if everything is mandated and we're running it at a level that we have to run it at, then I guess there isn't much that we can do about it.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you. I didn't hear anything today different from the pressures that council goes through. And we have now to find, the extra 400,000 for this year's budget. Everything that you said, are pressures that we face every day. I understand the good work that you do. I would hope that the citizens of St. Thomas see the good work that we're doing, but trying to deliver services. We have to make tough decisions. I don't see where you've made any tough decisions, whether they're mandated or not. You talked about pressures. You talked about the higher numbers as if it's a justification. Maybe it's just a reflection that what you're doing and have been the way you've been doing it isn't working. I don't know, but to me, I still don't see where your board has taken a deep dive at looking at how can you do and deliver things differently with a budget that's coming in at these amounts. And I'd still like to see that this council moves forward and sees how we can appeal this.
Thank you. Councillor Peters. Oh, jump in. Any response to?
Your worship, there was no question there, so.
Okay, great. Councillor Peters.
My question is, how has the mandate changed? Like, why are you in the mental health field when we have a Canadian Mental Health Association that, in my mind, should be dealing with mental health issues? One question. Why are you in the climate change and extreme weather business? Again, that to me is a conservation authority issue, Ministry of Environment issue, an issue that we deal with here at City Council. So it just seems to me that the mandate is getting broader of programs that you're delivering, and to me, it's getting away from the true nature of what I would envision being dealing with public health issues. So why are you expanding into these other areas?
Through your worship to the councillor, with regards to public health. So public health is population focused, it's community focused, and it's just not public health driving change, is the change happening through the collaboration with municipalities. So if we look at the city of St. Thomas and some of the great things that have happened within this municipality in collaboration with public health, we look at the community connections project, whereas, generating the interconnections between pedestrians and walkways and bike lanes and the elevated park as an example of that. Public health was directly involved in the planning of that too, in the development of that over the last number of years. When we look at affordable housing, that's a social determinant of health. And affordable housing, municipalities may have a mandate around affordable housing, but to help address the social determinants of health, which include income, education, and housing, it takes a collaborative approach with the municipality and other community partners to address it from a population health lens. So public health doesn't look at it from a clinical lens, it doesn't look at it from a medical lens, it looks at it from a population health lens. That's done so in collaboration with municipalities, community partners, and members of the public to help inform some of that decision making. And so everything that we do, whether it's mental health or the climate change, is really focusing on it from a population health level and recognizing that municipalities and other community partners have different mandates to help inform those decisions and help inform those healthy public policies moving forward. Ideally, what we want to see, across all municipalities in the region that we serve is a health and all policies approach. So every decision that's made as it relates to bylaws or policies include that health lens to ensure that we're going to be improving those health outcomes over the long term.
Further questions? Councillor Clark, I'm going to call that the last one.
Okay, supplementary then. I thought I heard through the chair that the vote on the budget was unanimous, and yet I thought I heard at a recent council meeting that you and yourself and Councillor Herbert didn't vote for the budget. Can I get a clarification on that?
Yeah, we voted, Councillor Herbert and I voted against the extension of what happened in last year's budget increase at the health unit, not on this budget. So a very large portion of what's being what came to us as an additional levy was added in last year's budget. We were very clear then that we needed, if we wanted to expand what the health unit was doing, Councillor Herbert spoke to it also, that we would vote against it, and we did. And then when this budget came, this is just a piling on of exactly that budget that happened most of the way through last year. Councillor Herbert, if you'd like to. Got it? Great. Thank you for coming and joining us tonight.
Thank you kindly.
And you don't have to stay and watch the rest of our show. I know it's exciting, and Bernia, for you, I know more than exciting, but no, it's. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item.
Your worship, council will resolve itself into committee of the whole to deal with the following business. The first committee this evening is strategic direction and development. Under new business, the first item relates to homelessness prevention program 2024 to 2025 investment plan. I have a motion that report SESS 0624 relating to the homelessness prevention program 2024 to 25 investment plan be received for information, and further that council approve the homelessness prevention program 2024 to 25 investment plan provided in report SESS 0624, which outlines recommended spending by service categories of $2,527,500 in provincial funding for the period April 1st, 2024 to March 31st, 2025. Moved by Councillor Kohler, second by Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Questions or comments on the report or Councillor Peters?
Thanks very much to Danielle. Danielle, can you tell me what the impact is going to be of the loss of the 2 street outreach workers and how that void is going to be filled to continue the good work that those outreach workers were doing?
Ms. Nielsen, thank you for coming tonight. Please help us.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Council. Thank you very much for the question, Councillor Peters. I think probably what's important to start with is to provide clear messaging that we are not ending street outreach services in our community. What we've done over a number of months is worked closely with the CMHA leadership of the street outreach team to assess and evaluate the activities that we're seeing on our streets today, and to determine whether or not the current partnership and match for street outreach services is reflective and appropriately matched to the needs that we're seeing in our community, again, related specifically to street outreach. The work that we've done through those conversations and internally within our office has found an opportunity to really look at what street outreach services sort of 2.0 will look like in our community. And part of what I'd like to share with you is that there have been a number of changes in our community over the last 3 years that have resulted in the reduction of active street activity that we were seeing in 2021 and 2022, for example. Some of those initiatives over the last 3 years include increasing supportive housing units by 60+ units here within St. Thomas, increasing rent supplements that have been matched to people actively experiencing homelessness, leaning into best practices known to solve and resolve occurrences of homelessness, like our coordinated access system, our by names list, working with our emergency shelter to create a low barrier and housing focused approach to how we're supporting people who are living unsheltered or actively experiencing homelessness as well. And through those initiatives, which have been accomplished through council endorsement and support, so I'd like to thank you for that, we have seen a reduction. However, that doesn't mean that the needs are gone, and it doesn't mean that we still don't have lots of work ahead of us. So what we have done through those conversations with CMHA leadership is looked for opportunities to maximize other municipal resources. For example, the implementation of the special constables through St. Thomas Police Services, and how St. Thomas Elgin Social Services can work in partnership with the special constables to ensure that there still is an opportunity to meet people where they're at and provide them with supports on the streets. I apologize if that was a long-winded message. Essentially, what is, I think, important to convey is that street outreach services are not ending in our community, and that we are incredibly grateful for the partnership we've had with CMHA and the really incredible work that they've done with vulnerable people in our community to date.
Councillor Kohler?
Thanks, Your Worship. And Danielle, thanks for the report. It's great. For the housing assistance, I'm just wondering if you could maybe just explain to some people in the public how they would go about contacting somebody to help with that if they're having trouble paying. Like, this isn't all just for people that are already homeless, it's people to prevent homeless. So could you maybe just explain how people could utilize that and contact who they needed to contact if they're having trouble making their current rent?
Sure. Thank you very much for the question, Councillor Kohler. So individuals and families in our community that are living within low income thresholds are able to access us through contacting St. Thomas Elgin Social Services by email, by phone, or coming in person to look at any resources that we may have that they may qualify for to bridge that gap around what their rent is or their utilities are and the affordability rate. And that's work that we do on a daily basis, again, through that lens of prevention, because you're correct. It's not about just being reactive to occurrences of homelessness. It's about swimming upstream as well to prevent occurrences of homelessness.
Thank you. Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for the report, Danielle and Heather. You guys do a great job on this. My concern is, I noticed like the YW and even they're in, you're getting less than what you're asking for. So does this mean more staff have to take on extra duties, or is that a big concern for you people not to get what you really want, especially for overworking staff? I mean, they can only do so much, but if you don't get all the funds you're asking for, somebody has to pick up the slack. So that's my question. Is it really a big concern, or you just work with it for the 2024?
Thank you, Councillor Herbert, for your thoughtful question. Yes, it is a challenge. So in our community, similar to all communities across Canada, the HPP portfolio is severely underfunded. And it makes it challenging to stretch those dollars as far as they can possibly go in a community when we know that the needs exceed the resources available. What I can share with you is that for the most part, we do a very good job in St. Thomas stretching those dollars as far as they can go. People do work extra hard. They do more duties than perhaps someone in a job outside of the homelessness sector may or may not be required to do to fulfill the terms of their employment. And it's a concern in the sense that we have essential services right now that we need. An example would be our emergency shelter. Ultimately, the goal is to work ourselves out of requiring an emergency shelter, at least in the size and scope that it currently exists in. But right now we need an emergency shelter. And so over the last couple of years, we have worked and continue to work very closely with the leadership of the inn to look at where we can maximize every opportunity to assist in offsetting the gap in funding. They also work very hard over the last couple of years. They have increased their fundraising activities and outcomes and successes. They have looked to reduce costs wherever necessary. For example, they were able to reduce the amount of security required because of some of the other initiatives that have happened in our community. And that work is ongoing, but it is a challenge. So yes, thank you again for your question.
Councillor Baldwin says.
Thank you. And again, thank you very much for the report. It's very comprehensive and it allows for an increased level of understanding with what our community constantly deals with. And I thank you for it. In the past, I have also heralded the work of city staff for breaking down the silos and the breaking down of barriers and building a collaborative and collective approach to homelessness. And again, with this report, how you've pivoted to those levels of highest need. And once again, I'd like to say thank you to the outside city organizations, the not-for-profits, the volunteer groups, the service clubs, more and more that are coming on board, and more who help out and give their hands when they are required. So I know that the others have asked this question, but I'll ask for it to be highlighted one more time. What other strides or challenges that you have in this report that you would like to highlight for members of council and the public at this time? And thank you again.
Thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Baldwin-Sands. I appreciate them all very much, and I express and share that same gratitude for our community service providers and volunteers who do this work day in and day out. It's not easy work, not for anyone who's involved. Probably the most important thing to highlight, especially because we are a very housing-focused community, is that we need more affordable housing, and we need more affordable housing with supports attached. This is how we tip the scale. This is how we become a community where we do have housing, where we can support people who experience homelessness to make sure that their occurrence is brief, rare, and non-reoccurring. So that's probably the biggest thing that I'd like to highlight in our community. And again, thank you to our council for being housing focused and supporting opportunities when they come forward to you. It truly is our way out of our current crisis.
Thank you. Councillor Clark?
Thanks. I just add my comments that I found it ironic that we have such a hardworking department such as this. It just highlights it tonight. And all the work that staff did on our budget to come in at 2.9, and then we have our previous presentation where we're adding, 400,000. I commend your staff on the hard work that they've done. I bet you wish you worked for the health unit.
You stay where you are.
Thank you, Councillor Clark.
I like Councillor Clark's compliments, but yeah. Further questions or comments? Councillor Peters, did I see your hand? No. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Your Worship, the next item is a notice received from the Committee of Adjustment about a public meeting to take place by Zoom on March 14th, 2024 at 10 a.m. This is for a minor variance to permit roof eaves and overhangs and exterior stairs projecting 0.76 meters into side and rear yards, and to permit the building 2 meters from the rear lot line. And this is for a construction of a new 2-story building containing 4 dwelling units at 200 Center Street. Unless there are any further items from the members under this committee, we'll move into community engagement and services. There's no items on the agenda this evening, unless there are any items from the members. Okay. Then we will move into infrastructure and civic operations. Again, no items on the agenda this evening, unless there are any items from the members. And we'll move into corporate governance and administration. The first item relates to the public sector salary disclosure for 2023. I have a motion that report HR 0124 relating to public sector salary disclosure for 2023 be received for information. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Gibson.
Questions or comments on the report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item, Your Worship, is from Corex Energy Inc. for a proposed transfer of shares in Integris Inc. Notice has been received from the Corex group of companies regarding the transfer of Corex Infrastructure Inc. shares in Integris Inc. to Chorus District Energy Holdings LP, and requesting that the city execute a shareholder resolution and accession agreement. I have a motion that council consent to the transaction of shares from Corex Energy Inc. to Chorus Infrastructure Inc. as contained in the shareholder resolution, and further that council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the shareholder resolution and accession agreement. Moved by Councillor Wookey, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Councillor Kohler.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just want some clarification. I don't know if one of the board members can give it or staff. The resolutions are pretty straightforward and say that, yes, under section 3.2, we can do this. But when you read the solicitor's letter, he writes in there that therefore we believe the proposed transfer is permitted. So like, are
I'm
we
going to ask.
voting on this? Like, do we know if we actually can do it, or is he not so sure?
I'm going to ask Councillor Wookey for his advice. He sits on that committee too.
Thanks, Your Worship, and thanks, Councillor Kohler. I'll answer that by just talking about specifically this issue. Then I want to talk about Corex for a second for both the benefit of my colleagues and for the people in the city of St. Thomas. So this being, it's strictly an internal transfer of shares. I certainly have no concerns over this. We've been in touch. I was talking to the Vice President this week about it. It's simply internal, and for anybody out there, it's whether you want to equate it to Volkswagen and PowerCo or Formet within Magna, whatever you want to say it, it's a wholly owned subsidiary. So it's not being transferred outside. If it's being transferred outside, that'd be a whole different story. And I'll explain why that matters in a second. So, and it does not change our ownership level. It does not diminish our ownership level. It has no impact upon us and no impact on the municipality of Chatham-Kent, who is the second shareholder, and Corex is the third shareholder in Tegris. If I can go on just for a minute or two, just to talk about Corex for a second. They're a very interesting company. They are an American-based company. They have businesses in 20 states. They are in British Columbia. They are all over the place, and they deal with regulated utilities, specifically in the water industry, both wastewater, drinking water, wastewater. They have this interesting old company in Cleveland called Cleveland Thermal, which they produce steam for buildings in downtown Cleveland. And they have one member on our board, and that one member is a very important member. So they're a shareholder like we are. Their member sits on many different boards, and it's very useful for me, for Councillor Clark and everyone, because sometimes we'll confront things and that representative will say, well, yes, we dealt with this in Texas at this such and such a place, and here's how this kind of worked out. So Corex is a minority shareholder. They're a private equity firm. They don't represent a municipality, unlike Chatham, Kent, and St. Thomas, but they are very valuable members of the board, and they offer very educated, measured insight. And I often, when I'm sitting in a meeting there, I will look to what the Corex representative has to say, because they have far more industry experience than, say, I do. Now, I want to give a shout out to our representative, Joe Brophy, on the board. And Joe has got a lot of experience in natural gas pipeline, so regulated utilities. And he's very good with, when we start talking about the interveners, which is like, sounds like it's from Harry Potter, but the interveners are the Ontario Energy Board, the provincial government, anybody who's involved in it. And that's a lot of our business, is dealing with the interveners. And again, Joe Brophy does an outstanding job in that. And so that's my little kind of discussion about what Corex is. And again, this is strictly an internal situation within Corex. It has no effect on us, but we need to sign off on it as shareholders. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions on this report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Thanks, Your Worship. Unless there are any further items from the members under this committee, council will reconvene into regular session. I have a motion that the recommendations, directions, and actions of council and committee of the whole, as recorded in the minutes of this date, be confirmed, ratified, and adopted. Moved by Councillor Gibson, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item is reports of committees. One item this evening, we have a request for amendment of bylaw 187/2014 for the Elgin County Railway Museum to 225 Wellington Street. I just want to remind council that although the Municipal Heritage Committee recommends against amending the bylaw, all of council's resolutions are prepared in the positive. I have a motion that report MHC 0324 relating to the request for amendment of bylaw 187/2014, Elgin County Railway Museum, 225 Wellington Street, be received for information. And further, that council authorize the preparation of an amendment to bylaw 187/2014, being the heritage designation bylaw for 225 Wellington Street in the city of St. Thomas as a property of cultural heritage value or interest.
Okay, so
I can just get a mover. Moved by Councillor Wookie. Seconded by Councillor Gibson.
just to clarify, a yes vote on this means what?
Your Worship, if council votes yes on this, that means they'll support the amendment to the bylaw, which moves that process forward.
To the bylaw, not to the committee.
That's correct. A vote against this would be siding with the committee's recommendation.
Okay. So just to clarify, if council wants our project around the Railway Museum and railway lands to move forward, then a yes vote is required tonight. If we'd like it to stop at this point, we said we would touch it many times at this council. We wanted to stop it tonight, then we would be voting no. Okay, just wanted to get there. Conversation, please. Questions and comments. Councillor Peters.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think it's important just to relay some of the concerns from the Municipal Heritage Committee as city's representative on it. The committee was split on this issue. It was definitely divided, but the majority voted against the recommendation to proceed, and hence what was in front of us this evening. I think it's important to state that a number of the committee members were very concerned about just the timing of the process. They, as was pointed out in the report, they genuinely believed that it was premature to move forward until the secondary plan was in place. And I want to relay that. I want to relay as well too a concern that was expressed to the committee and concern of my own, even though I did vote and I will support this evening. I am deeply concerned about future railway access to the existing railway museum. I've seen conflicting plans that have been sent out by Doug Terry Limited, from some of the Rail Works Coalition, from the Railway Museum itself. And I am concerned about the ability of what it's going to cost to extend the transfer table to the north, put a new track in, and have the ability to move rolling stock out onto the grounds, move rolling stock out in front of the Canada Southern, the Queso station. Assurances have been provided that it's going to be doable. I still want to be on the record expressing my concern that it's doable, because I would be very troubled to see the 5,700 landlocked in that station. And unless one of these plans shows an entrance off the west side, the 5,700 is never going to move again, because it will not fit on the transfer table, and nobody's going to bring in a crane from Yarmouth Machine to pick that thing up and move it. It would be just cost prohibitive. To do it right, now is the time to do it right, and that is to put tracks in from the west side. Notwithstanding my comments, I will support this going forward.
I'm confused. Support the committee report going forward? Or
I'll support the
bylaw?
motion. I supported, I voted in, I did not vote the way the majority of the committee voted at the committee.
Okay.
But
I thought that's where you were.
I felt it was
Councillor Peters,
incumbent
I
on
just-
me
yeah.
to those individuals that
Bring the
expressed
message.
concern in their role as an advisory committee to this council. I felt it was important that their concerns get heard as well too.
Thank you. Councillor Clark?
Just ask for a recorded vote.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Councillor Wookie and then Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. When I was reading the report, I went back and looked at the reasons for the recommendation that was prepared in the Heritage Committee's report. I want to just echo kind of what Councillor Peters was saying. This access to the museum building, the rail, we've heard different stories from different people. So it's very hard for me. I'm not clear on what's actually going on in terms of access to get for the transfer table and all that kind of stuff. The secondary plan concern that they had, I feel comfortable with that. We are going to have a secondary plan before anything happens. And so that part of it, maybe it's because we're on the inside and we see kind of what's going on, but I'm much more comfortable with that than their committee would be. The loss of open space. Well, everybody knows that I'm a parks guy and open space is important to me. The challenge there is that the open space is contaminated, and we wanted to have events on that space and we can't do it. So the challenge there is that the open space isn't really open. It's open sort of like Joanne Brooks Park is, or is it Joanne Brooks Park beside old JC's pool there, like back behind it, where that's land, but it's not accessible because we can't use it really. And as far as the loss of heritage assets, maybe I'd like to ask Councillor Peters, when they say the loss of heritage assets for that one, is that literally the tracks themselves? Because of course the building, the museum itself will stay, but out in that yard, is it the track when they say a loss of heritage assets that they're talking about? Like, I'm not quite sure what that is. Having said that, I want to respect what they've done, but I will be supporting our motion here tonight. But if I get that clarified by you, that'd be great. Thanks.
Councillor Peters, by all means.
Yeah, thanks very much, Your Worship. Well, it's a very valid point, because a previous council put in place a heritage conservation district. They designated the lands first and then put the heritage conservation district in place. And part of the rationale, from what I understand of the creation of the Heritage Conservation District was the ability to have a working rail yard. And that is part of the heritage of the city of St. Thomas, that being a working rail yard. This plan, depending on whose plan you're looking at, destroys that heritage asset, and the potential to have a working rail yard no longer exists.
I'm sorry, I had other hands, but I forget where they were. Councillor Balloon Sands?
I was hoping that you could repeat what you said right at the beginning.
Okay, so I'm trying not to do it with prejudice. I'm trying to say that what if we say yes to this on this report, we're saying we want the project to move forward. If we say no on this, we're accepting the Heritage Committee's report to stop the project now. So it's because we vote in the positive at council that we have to do it that way. But I get what we're saying now, and I think if there's anybody that isn't, I'll repeat it again, or we'll have the clerk repeat it again. Further questions or comments? A recorded vote has been called for.
Your worship, so Councillor Clark,
Yes.
Councillor Gibson,
Yes.
Councillor Herbert,
Yes.
Councillor Kohler,
Yes.
Councillor McCauley,
Yes.
Councillor Peters,
Yes.
Councillor Wookie,
Yes.
Councillor Baldwin Sands,
Yes.
and your worship.
Yes. That is carried. So you have a question?
Yes, just a question. So what you told us tonight, or what you're saying, is that clarified somewhere that we're just accepting this report without any things out there added to it? Is that in there?
Well, I think the minutes of the meeting would show that's what we just
Okay,
did.
okay, good. Thank you.
We'll go with that, but I think we'll also see more now come back to visit us. As we said, when we first said, let's be bold and move forward, we said it will come back to us a number of touches. This was one of them tonight. So, and the Heritage Committee will certainly have plenty of time to relook at it in the future too, after more touches happen. So I think we'll leave that there. Next.
Worship, next item is petitions and communications. There's been a notice received from the Township of Southold of a Schedule C Municipal Class Environmental Assessment Study Addendum relating to the Talbotville wastewater treatment plant. Unless there are any items from the members, there's nothing further for petitions. We'll move into unfinished business of council.
Councillor Clark.
Just a question for Mr. Sheridan. At a previous meeting, we were discussing whether or not we had any avenues for appeal with regard to the public health levy. And I've just wondered if you heard back from the province as to whether or not we just have to pay it or whether or not there's an appeal process.
Great question. Councillor Sheridan? Sorry, I promoted you or demoted you, I think. Yeah. Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, through you. I don't have a definitive answer yet. I was kind of waiting to see how this turned out tonight, and I'll proceed to into that to find an answer.
Well, while you're here, can I ask, we have talked in the past about how do we limit these things through the Conservation Authority, other bodies that have the ability to levy us to an amount that we perceive is right for our budget. Can we, by sending a letter, what in some way or form, or information in some way or form, inform other agencies that for next year, here's the number we're looking for?
Yeah, we can do that. We kind of have been doing that in the past.
Right.
It doesn't always happen that way. Things don't turn out that way with the levies. There are, I know with the conservations, there are ways of appealing, but I have never been involved with that, and I know in the past we were unsuccessful in those appeals for that. So I'll have to find some more information and bring it back to see what the next steps are.
Thank you. Councillor Kohler?
Thanks, your worship. This is along the same line, but I was going to bring it up in new business and ask a request for you and Councillor Herbert to go back, because my question to the visitors tonight was about mandated programs, and they said that every program that they engage in is mandated. But
Absolutely.
in their presentation, though, it alluded that maybe some of the programs that they're working on are community-based. So I wasn't really sure if some of those programs were mandated from the community or from the province, because if the province is coming down with a 1% freeze, is kind of telling me that they're thinking that they should be able to work within their budget. And I was wondering if it was similar to like the conservation authorities where they said, you know, we're going to fund these mandated programs. We're not going to fund these other programs that are community based. So I just want to make sure that I wasn't misunderstood. I was talking mandated programs from the province. If all of what is currently taking place within the budget are programs that are mandated by the province, or if it's joint mandated things within the municipalities.
If I can share my knowledge, and it's not exclusive, that as the chair and the vice chair formerly of the health unit, that all of them are mandated by the province. There should be a non-smoking or smoking cessation program, but to some health units, that's a website. So they're meeting the mandated part. To some, it's 4 or 5 people out checking on variety stores to make sure they're not selling to minors. So be careful what we call mandated programs, because there's degrees to those mandated programs, and that's just one I just picked. So, right. I believe I'm correct on the mandating does not necessarily mean the same in each health unit. Okay, where were we at? No, we've asked the question, so we're now next. We're still on new business or unfinished business?
Yeah, unless there's any further unfinished business, we want a new business of council.
Anything else under unfinished? Anything under new business? Councillor Herbert.
Thank you, Worship. Well, this is just a question. I was reading the Toronto Star today, and Hamilton Utilities got hacked, and anybody who had a pre-authorized payment, it might take 4 or 5 months to sort it around. You'd have to spend their money, right?
Right.
You'd have to pay it. So my question is, could we get an update from our IT department here at the City Hall, just where we're at with it? Are we doing the right things, or are there programs that we can buy to get improved so we don't get hacked? Just a question if that can be done.
Well, you ask it often. I ask it often. Mr. Sheridan, if you'd like to come and answer it, our name hasn't been mentioned in any of those reports yet, because we've been very good at what we do, but nothing is 100%. So, Mr. Sheridan?
Thank you, through you. We have we've had some consultants from outside look at our system. It's believed there's room for improvement, of course, but we are in pretty good shape right now. We're always improved. We just improved firewalls. We just went through a test. Some of the biggest problems you get are, yes,
Exactly.
employees and people through phishing emails and stuff like that. So some of that is education for everyone involved, and we're taking on some of that right now. So we just last week or the week before, there was a test that happened. An email went out and to test how many people would respond to it. So now there was some people that responded to it. So now there's going to be an education, so we see where our weaknesses are, and we will try and address that through education. We're always on the network side. We're always improving things. Dual authentication is very helpful. We're working on that. It's not fully implemented yet, but they're working away on it. If there was any big holes in the system, we'd be right on it, but we always have to improve because everyone out there is trying harder to get in. So.
Great. I don't want any more follow-up. We don't want to tell them that our goalie's good to the weak side. This is not something we should be sharing. So we can share it internally. If it's a follow-up to that, I just said no. If it's not a follow-up to that, then please go ahead.
Oh, that's all I was gonna ask, but I did something right. He's telling us all.
We'll put a course together for you, Councillor Herbert. You can go and see. Yep. Other new business. I've got two. One is the importance of April 8th. And it doesn't have anything to do with the eclipse. April 8th, early in the morning, our first regional transit bus will leave our transit station and head to London. And on that day, it will continuously run there and back and there and back. And even on Saturday and Sunday with reduced carriage. But we are now connected to the outside again. It's been, I don't know, Councillor Peters, you could probably tell me, when did the last Greyhound bus run? We were both
It was
didn't have gray hair.
It was Charterways and it's got to be at least 15 years ago.
Yeah. So we're back, thanks to the County of Middlesex, and I really wanted to tout them. They really brought this more to us. They knew we've been working very hard and long at trying to get regional transit back in. And they are already running a couple of other regional transit lines. And so this helps. Somebody's got a live mic. Says Jeff.
Because it's not that expensive.
Says Jeff Bray. So anyway, we'll go back to where I was. And so starting April 8th, it is the day of the eclipse, but I will be taking a very early morning bus on the first run over to London and Dorchester, turn around and come back. And that will be what we do here. This council will be asked in the next little while to adjust our transit system in some ways so that it matches getting people to those buses heading to London. From an economic point of view, we've got to get people to work. And so we have to have a run of our transit to get them to the transit station before the first run in. But this will now open up the world to Fanshawe College, to Western, to medical appointments and to jobs in London. So I wanted to thank everybody who's worked really hard on this to make it happen. You know how many years we've been working hard to try and make it happen. The second one is a young lad named Dan Bolton, who I believe has been a speaker to our council from time. He's a lived experience, homeless and addiction. Got to make a speech at Queen's Park last week and talked highly about where St. Thomas is on our housing and are dealing with addictions and such. And he sent me a copy of his speech last night and he and I conversed a little bit, but he's so thankful that he lives in a community that cares about housing. He was happy to share that with in his own way with the folks at Queen's Park. So our message is getting out there, folks, as to what we're doing from a homelessness, attention and an addiction point of view. So Dan, thank you for being a great St. Thomas citizen if you're watching tonight. And if not, somebody who runs into him next, tell him we said so. That's all I have on new business.
Worship will move into bylaws. I have a motion that leave be granted to bring in the bylaws. Moved by Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
I have a motion that the bylaws be now read a first time, referred to council and committee of the whole and read a second time, moved by Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Baldwin Sands.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
First bylaw, please.
First bylaw is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting held on the 11th day of March, 2024.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Next bylaw, please.
Next bylaw is a bylaw to amend bylaw 4589, being a bylaw to revise and consolidate certain bylaws regulating traffic and parking of motor vehicles. This relates to two-way traffic conversion, Pearl Street, no parking zones and stop signs at East Street, Scott Street, and St. George Street.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Last bylaw, please.
The third and final bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix the seal of the corporation to a certain agreement between the corporation of the city of St. Thomas, corporation of the municipality of Chatham-Kent, Corex Infrastructure Inc., Corex District Energy Holdings LP, and Integris Inc. This relates to transferred interest in Integris Inc. to Corex District Energy Holdings LP.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Your worship, I rise and report the successful passing of 3 bylaws.
Great.
I have a motion that the report of council and committee of the whole on the following bylaws be received and adopted. The same be read a third time and gross signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed and numbered. Moved by Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Balvin Sands.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
Next item on the agenda is public notice. There is a notice this evening for the Retail Business Holidays Act exemption for Railway City Brewing and Caps Op Brewing Companies. Notice is hereby provided that a public meeting will be held on April 8th, 2024 at 6 p.m. by Zoom regarding a proposed bylaw amendment to consider an exemption under the Retail Business Holidays Act for both Railway City and Caps Off Brewing Companies to be open on Good Friday and Easter Sunday. No notices of motion this evening, Your Worship, but there is a need to go into closed session. I have a motion that this meeting be closed to deal with the proposed or pending disposition of land, 2 matters of a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiation carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality, and information explicitly supplied in confidence to the municipality by Canada, a province or territory, or a crown agency of any of them. Moved by Councillor McCauley, seconded by Councillor Balvin Sands.
Before I take the vote, we'll remind the folks watching at home and any here that this will mean we're going into a closed session to have a discussion on a couple of things. And when we're done, we'll be coming out of closed session simply to adjourn or pass anything that happens and adjourn and end for the night. So we thank you all for attending or watching tonight, and all those in favor? Any opposed? We are closed.